The following podcast was recorded in front of a live streaming audience on Wednesday, June the 3rd, 2026. This episode will also contain the names of people, places, and things that I am sure to mispronounce. Like horribly. Listener discretion is advised.
You know who you are? Steven is my name. Even Steven.
Will you say something, Steven?
Steven Orhouse Media.
Conan finally steps foot in Zamora when, of course, he is wrapped up in an exciting adventure after rescuing a hot babe from a mob of unruly villagers out for her blood. So, like a Tuesday for Conan. Welcome to Hither Came Conan, the podcast that's treading the jewel thrones of Hyboria beneath its sneakered feet, one comic book at a time. I'm your host, my name is Steven, and I have been bathing myself in Conan recently. More specifically, Jim Zub's current run for heroic signatures in Titan Comics. I mean, if you're a fan of Conan, and if you're listening to me say that, I assume you are, then you gotta be reading the current Conan the Barbarian comic. While I am perfectly comfortable assuming that you are a fan of the steely-thewed Cimmerian, I am not at all willing to assume you're reading the current Titan run. So yeah, I had to say something. I don't know if I'll get back to covering those issues here on the show, but I think that if I do, I may do them one story arc per episode. I don't know. Anyway, today we're looking at Conan the Barbarian number 41. This issue sports a cover date of August 1974, though it hit the stands in May. Actually, you know what? I feel like I am forgetting something. Let me just check my notes here. Oh yeah, listeners' feedback. So if you remember from the last episode, I held a question contest back in September of 2024. And I got a bunch of questions from a listener known as Lee Peacock. And then I did nothing with them until, well, the last time I recorded an episode. So with your memory now refreshed, here we go with 3 more questions from Lee Peacock. Question number 1. If you could make a new Conan movie, what Conan story would you base it on? That's a really good question. First off, if I had my way, I would rather do a series for Netflix or Hulu or HBO Max or whatever. That way, I would be able to adapt some, if not all, of Robert E. Howard's Conan stories. I think that would be the best way to go, frankly. Not just a movie, I want to see a series. But, of course, that wasn't the question. So, my first instinct is to say Rogues in the House or The God in the Bowl, because those are 2 of my favorite stories. Rogues in the House would be fun because it's almost like a locked door horror tale as Conan and Murillo. Did I get that right? I don't know. Conan and some dude have to team up with a bad guy, Nabonidus, the Red Priest. And they have to do this to take out Thak, who's like a big primitive ape man guy. He's a big gorilla, basically. Actually, according to Wikipedia, he's a primitive ape-like creature who Nabonidus had captured as a cub and trained as his personal bodyguard. But then again, God in the Bowl is almost like a Hyborian police procedural with a bit of horrifying mysticism thrown in for good measure. It's really hard to choose, honestly. Thinking it through, I'm beginning to realize that I can't quite remember each of Bob's Conan stories, so maybe it's time for me to give them a bit of a reread. Maybe. Probably a good idea. It's been a while. For now, however, I think I'm going to go with The God in the Bowl. Question number 2. If you could only ask Conan one question, what would it be? Another great question. Honestly, the answer might depend on which Conan we're talking about. Conan the Thief, Conan the Pirate, Conan the Mercenary, Conan the King. I mean, there's a lot to consider here, but I'm not one for deep thinking, so this answer may seem a bit flippant, but I think I'd ask him why he prefers those little fur trunks over any other article of clothing. Think about it. There are many comics out there depicting Conan in the north, trudging through feet of snow. Blizzards are raging all around him. And though he typically is wearing like a cape of some sort, like a cloak, like a big fur cloak, he's still often wearing, underneath that, just the fur trunks and a pair of boots. And that's it. No shirt, no pants. Only the cloak to protect his bare skin from the elements. And I just gotta wonder why. What's the purpose there, buddy? I want to know. I think all of us want to know. Question number 3. If Conan existed in the present day, what would his occupation be? Construction worker, NFL linebacker, professional wrestler, maybe? This is actually my favorite question so far, but I don't know. I mean, my gut tells me to look at his life in the Hyborian age and then try to translate that to the modern age. And well, I'm just going to make things easier for me, and I'm going to make him American. So he would have grown up poor in a small town in the middle of nowhere, and I think he would have dropped out of high school, not because he was dumb, but because he was too smart for school and got bored easily. And from that boredom, he got in trouble a lot. He also wanted to get out of his hometown and see the world. So he drops out of high school, lies about his age, and joins the military, probably the Marines, where he excels. Eventually, he's placed in an elite squad, something like the Navy SEALs, and he travels the globe, killing people and blowing shit up. He's happy with this life at first, but he begins to become dissatisfied with the American government's policy of greed and corruption. He's tired of getting bloody so that the rich corporate fat cats can gain more wealth. And so when his time is up, he leaves the military and for a while uses his skills for money, becoming a high-paid mercenary. I think eventually, though, as he grows older, he leaves killing and fighting behind him and enters the world of politics. He becomes the mayor of New York City, where he champions socialist values, and the people straight up love him. Yeah, it's either that or he becomes a cowboy in Montana. Either one. But there you go, folks. 3 questions and 3 answers. There will be at least 3 more in the next episode, and if you want to join in, send your questions to feedback@hithercameconan.com. Or if you want to try to answer any of the questions from today's episode, it's the same email address. Just send it along. Until then, folks, today we're plunging headfirst into Conan the Barbarian number 41 from Marvel Comics. This issue sports a cover date of August 1974, though it hit the stands in May. It sold for just 25 cents, and it is entitled The Garden of Death and Life. It was written by Roy Thomas with art by John Buscema. The inks were by Ernie Chan. The letters were by John Costanza. And the colorist was Glynis Wein.
Into the boat!
After 3 years away, Conan returns to Zamora. In a small desert village a week's ride from Erringen, the city of thieves, Conan stumbles across a group of villagers determined to kill a beautiful girl named Zhadorr, who seems to have bewitched one of their number. Conan fights them off and flees the village with the girl, who tells him of the nearby oasis Shar al-Tajin, 2 days' ride from the village. On the way there, the two are discovered by a group of desert bandits who follow them to the oasis, a refreshing pool next to a large tree filled with large pods. Conan dives into the welcoming waters, but discovers the pool's floor is littered with bones. Afraid the water is poisoned, and realizing the oasis's name, Shar al-Tajin, is Zamoran for bones of fools, Conan comes to the surface only to be captured by the bandits, who intend to sell him into slavery. That night, Conan slips free, but discovers that Zhadorr has died for mysterious reasons. At that moment, the tree itself attacks the men, using vines and ropes to pull the men into a gaping maw in its trunk. Conan frantically attacks the tree creature with a torch, setting it aflame, killing it and all the bandits. Only one of the pods remains unharmed, and it opens up, revealing a perfect replica of Zhadorr, who apparently was only a spore to lure men to the oasis for the tree to devour. As the issue ends, Conan, horrified, kills the plant woman and rides away. All right, so this story, The Garden of Death and Life, was written by Roy Thomas and was not based on any other Conan or Robert E. Howard story. It was, however, inspired by two different tales. First was Shambleau, a short sci-fi fantasy story by Catherine Lucille Moore, writing under the name C.L. Moore. Moore was a contemporary of Robert E. Howard's, and Shambleau, a sort of weird Western set on Mars, was published in the November 1933 issue of Weird Tales magazine. Shambleau, which, as I said, is set on Mars, tells the tale of Northwest Smith, a pilot and smuggler who runs into a screaming, bloodthirsty mob chasing a comely young woman who they call Shambleau. Smith saves her only to discover later that Shambleau is the name of a vampiric alien species, and it's not long before the comely woman attempts to feed upon his life force using, as Wikipedia describes them, the extensible worm-like appendages it has instead of hair. The appendages, these worm-like snaky things, they also pump the victim full of an overwhelming feeling of pure ecstasy, which makes them docile while the Shambleau feeds. And it's this worm-like or snake hair that Smith suspects is the origin of the Medusa myth on Earth. C.L. Moore, by the way, was inspired to write Shambleau after reading the 160-line poem The Haystack in the Floods by William Morris, first published in The Defense of Guinevere and Other Poems all the way back in 1858. That's a long time ago. The second tale that inspired Roy to write The Garden of Death and Life was the 1956 science fiction horror film Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which was directed by Don Siegel and starred Kevin McCarthy and Dana Winter. Based on Jack Finney's science fiction novel The Body Snatchers, which originally serialized in Collier's magazine in November through December of 1954, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is about a town in California where, again, according to Wikipedia, alien plant spores have fallen from space and grown into large seed pods, each one capable of producing a visually identical copy of a human. As each pod reaches full development, it assimilates the physical traits, memories, and personalities of each sleeping person placed near it until only the replacement is left. These duplicates, however, are devoid of all human emotion. Little by little, the Doctor uncovers this quiet invasion and attempts to stop it. With all that said, grab up your copies of Conan the Barbarian number 41, because we are about to dive. All right, so we will start, as always, with the cover. This is a Gil Kane cover with inks by Ernie Chan, and it reminds me a lot of the Crossroads. If you were reading The Incredible Hulk in the 1980s, at one point he was thrown into this like world outside of our world. They called it the Crossroads. It was like a place between dimensions with doorways to other dimensions and whatnot. There was a whole arc that was done. It was called The Crossroads. It ran through Incredible Hulk issues 301 to 313, as well as annual number 13. That was from August of 84 to August of 85. And when he's in the Crossroads, that's what this cover makes me think of, because there's like a really weird tree there that I think has different hands to point out the different doorways and stuff. And I don't know, that for some reason, that's what that made me think of.
Hither Came Conan will return after these messages.
Hey there, I'm Star Master Jeff of the Dark Star Adventure Cast, a sci-fi actual play where every choice matters, every danger is real, and nothing stays buried in the dark between the stars. Follow the crew of the Scapegoat through heists, gang wars, and something ancient moving through the void. Critics call it lean, cinematic, and immersive. New episodes every other Tuesday at darkstaradventures.com, and keep following that signal.
Hey there, comic fans and children of the 80s. My name is Steven, and I would like to invite you to join me on another G.I. Joe podcast. If you grew up yelling, "Yo, Joe!" or flipping through dog-eared issues of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, this is the show for you. Each episode, we're tackling one issue of the classic Marvel comic series, starting all the way back in 1982. We'll break down the stories, the artwork, the characters, the wild twists, the covert missions, everything that made this series one of the most surprisingly rich comic runs of the decade. We'll follow the rise of Snake Eyes, the schemes of Cobra Commander, the battles, the vehicles, the ninjas, the chaos, and the totally over-the-top, totally awesome storytelling that defined 80s action. Whether you're reliving your childhood or discovering these comics for the first time, I'm here to guide you through it all with excitement, insight, and plenty of nostalgia. So grab your gear and join the team, because the mission begins now. Yo, Joe!
In a world where there's often 60 plus years of history to worry about, how can you quickly get into a new comic character or franchise? If you're like me, then you turn to video games. But how well does that work out? In some cases, pretty well. In others, it's a giant disaster. But how can you know which games will set you on the right path and which games will just leave you more confused than you were before? Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode we take a look at video games based on comic properties and how well they stick to that source material. So listen in and get the scoop on which games are worth your time over at playcomics.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
And now back to Hither Came Conan.
Getting into the issue, first page is the title page. We have Conan riding into town in this unnamed village in the desert just outside Erringen, which Robert E. Howard had always called the City of Thieves, apparently. Doing a little bit of research on it, because you know how much I hate research. The title, the name of the city being called Erringen, I believe I read that was not a Robert E. Howard thing, that L. Sprague de Camp later on, when he was putting all the stories together and writing his own and all that, he named the City of Thieves, gave it a proper name, which is Erringen. We're not in Erringen, though. We're not in the City of Thieves. We are outside somewhere nearby in a small, remote desert village. Conan comes riding in. It's night out. And as he rides into town, he seems to be, I don't know, he's getting ready to go to a club, basically, a bar, an inn, probably a place where he could get a drink, maybe score a babe, have a night's sleep, and then head back out in the morning. And he finds one right away. Third panel of the issue, he sees one because he can see through the doorway, the light coming through the doorway. He can see inside. There's a half-naked lady dancing on a table. And he's like, that is the spot for Conan. This is where Conan needs to be right now. So he gets down off his horse. He's getting ready to tie it up. And that's when Zhadorr, this woman, she comes fleeing through the village. She's running by him. She's wearing like this green, almost like a potato sack for a dress. It's ripped and it's torn, and villagers are chasing her, and they're carrying torches and they're throwing rocks at her. And Conan, of course, he's just kind of looking at him. He's like, that's interesting. And in fact, the narration tells us he neither speaks nor acts. He'll watch and listen for a moment before he seeks the easy camaraderie and soft, painted women within. So even though he sees what appears to be an entire village of angry people chasing this woman through the streets, bearing torches, throwing rocks and stuff at her, he's like, I'll watch for a minute, but I think eventually I'm just going to ignore it and go on into this tavern here, this brothel, whatever it is, and get me some alcohol and a lady. Alcohol, lady, bed. That's what Conan wants. Of course, by the time you get right to the next page, the very first panel, the narration box continues, but he finds the holding back hard indeed. Because he's Conan, right? He can't watch a woman being attacked, especially by an entire village made up what appears to be mainly of men. And so he steps in, and in fact, here on the second page, Zhadorr, or at least that's what they're yelling. They're yelling the name Zhadorr, Zhadorr. So this woman, she's running from this mob. She's going up to people. There are still people that are just kind of standing around going, what's going on with all this? She's running up, like she runs up to one of them. Please help me, sir. Please help me. And he's like, you get away from me, woman. He knocks her to the ground, and then he picks up a rock, and he's getting ready to bludgeon her to death. And Conan just kind of walks up from behind and kicks the guy. Now, it looks like in this final panel on page 2 that he's kicking him in the ass. And he kicks him so hard that the guy flies forward and smacks the side of his face into a wall. And I don't know, I just thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, we turn to page 3. Zhadorr, or the woman that these villagers have been chasing. She's on the ground. Conan is standing above her. And the woman is, please help me. Please save me, large, half-naked barbarian. He, however, Conan hasn't quite decided if he's going to go the extra mile with her. He's ready to just leave her there. He actually gazes in the second panel on page 3. He gazes back through the doorway at the half-naked woman dancing on the table, and all the people, yay, cheering her on. Look at her go! Look at her go! But in the end, he doesn't quite decide to take her with him or anything, but he realizes that if he's gonna get the 3 things that he wants tonight, alcohol, a woman, and a bed, if he's gonna do that with a guilt-free conscience, he's gotta disperse this crowd. He's gotta basically convince them that the last thing they want to do is go after this lady because, Conan's not much of a talker. He's not negotiating. He's not going to negotiate with them in any way that would not involve violence. Let's just put it that way. He's ready to kill them all if they continue forward on their quest. The villagers, however, they're really confused. One of them says, "Has the desert sun seared your wits, barbarian? You're defending that. And then another one continues, "Do you know what she is?" Conan doesn't. As far as he knows, she's a helpless woman that needs help. He puts his arm around her. She's kind of almost passed out. He's practically holding her up with one arm. His other arm, he's got his sword. He's telling the villagers that they can't have her. He will defend her, and he will kill them if necessary. But the villagers are trying to explain to him that she's not your average woman. And to prove it, they bring out a man who they say she has possessed. The moment he sees her, he starts freaking out, and he starts babbling. "Zhadorr, let me go to her, Zhadorr!" Conan looks at this guy and just immediately, this dude's crazy. Get him out of here. You know what? He's scaring the girl. I'm taking her away. You guys just leave. I'm taking her. Leave us alone. Don't follow. But the guy who was possessed, I'm using air quotes, possessed by her, just he sees this happening, that Conan's about to take her away, and that just freaks him out even more. "No, don't take her away. I won't let you take her away. Only one way to be free of Zhadorr, of her infernal humming. Only one way." And at the bottom of page 6 of the story, or page 6 of the comic, the man charges her, and he's got a knife. He's got a knife in his hand. Turn the page 7. He's about to stab her. You're thinking, Conan's going to step in and stop it from happening. But no, he stabs her right in the stomach. Just bloom. It's a big knife, too. That's at least, I don't know, that's a good 8-inch blade, maybe a foot long. I don't know. But he plunges it right into her belly. Conan, or I should say, as he's doing it, just before he stabs her, he says, "Yes, only one way to be free of Zhadorr. One path, the path of death." And that's when he stabs her. Ugh. She goes down. Conan comes up behind the guy and slices right down, I'm assuming from the top of his head right down his back. He just clunk, and the guy screams and he dies. But then we find out just the very next panel, we're still on page 7. We're only on the 4th panel. She's not dead. She gets stabbed in panel 2. She's still alive. She's not even harmed by panel 4. There's a hole in her dress where she was stabbed, but there's no blood, nothing. Conan finds that, of course, a little curious, but I don't know. I guess he probably assumes that she must have turned, maybe, as the guy was stabbing, and so all he got was her tunic. The villagers, after seeing Conan kill this guy who was going to kill the girl, they're not having any more of it. They attack Conan. Basically, they're throwing knives at him. The second to the last panel here on this page, they're throwing knives at him. And then on the last panel, one of my, I always like to point out these panels when it comes to John Buscema and Conan and fight scenes. I love the final panel on this page. He's just wading into these people. It's almost like he's standing atop of a pile of people that he's just cutting down. And frankly, I like the narration here, because as they're throwing the knives at him, Conan says, "By Crom, you desert swine, begin to try my patience. Let's see how you fare your brandished knives against a good Hyrcanian broadsword. And then the narration goes on to say,
and suddenly he is among them, dealing out death and pain as a wolf does to jackals that follow too closely in his trap.
Every once in a while, well, I don't want to say every once in a while, I think Roy's really good at adding these narration boxes, why'd I say it like that? At adding these narration boxes that feel like something Robert E. Howard would write. Turn the page. We're now on page 10. Yeah, we went from 7 to 10 because there's ads. So we skipped over the ads, went from page 7. Now we're on page 10. Conan scoops up the girl, starts running through the village. He's already killed a whole bunch of people. He jumps on the back of his horse and they go riding off into the desert. So Conan's not going to get his alcohol. He's not going to get his bed. He may still get his lady, though, because he's got one with him right now on a horse. So they go riding off into the desert, and eventually they're far enough from the village that they can't hear all the shouting, the angry shouts, and, we're going to kill you, you bastards, none of that. They can't hear any of that anymore. And so Conan, with the girl on the horse with him, sets off to Erringen, the city of thieves. The next morning, the girl, who we're just going to call Zhadorr, I think Conan eventually starts calling her Zhadorr. I don't quite remember. We'll find out as we get through it. But she tells Conan that there's an oasis up ahead. It's the oasis of Shar al-Tajin. It's just 2 days' ride. Conan wants to know how she knows about the oasis, and she can't really explain it. She's never been there. She just says she knows these things. Sometimes she just knows these things. That night, they're camped, sitting around a fire. Conan has killed something, so they're eating their dinner, and he's trying to get her to eat some of it, but she won't. All she wants is a little water, and she says she's tired. She says she doesn't like the dark. She says, "Don't like the dark. I'll rest till the sun is born again." Next page, it is the next day. The sun is up. Zhadorr just seems to be in heaven because the sun is shining down on her. Conan asks if her people worship the sun, and she responds very mysteriously. "Your people, whoever they are, do they worship the sun?" "I have no people. I am Zhadorr." "That is your name, then." "Somehow I didn't think." "Nor have I a name. I am Zhadorr." "Bakes my brains to think in this heat. Women are a puzzle in the coolest of times. Maybe we'd best go back to not talking, eh?" So I think there's still a part, at this point, Conan's like, all right, well, we're in the middle of the desert. I don't really have a choice. Keep going on. She's a little weird, but she's looking pretty good under that tunic. So let's just keep going forward. They keep traveling until the next night. Conan again is cooking something over a fire, which she won't eat. And, that's something he won't accept. "Still not hungry? Crom, girl, I've had enough of this foolery. Take this or I'll cram it piece by piece down your lovely throat." "Yes, all right, but I'll eat it alone." And she goes off, crosses over the top of a dune, so she's out of sight. Eventually, however, she comes back after she is quote unquote eaten. And there's a bit of narration here.
"In his few years among civilized men, Conan has learned that there are many religions, and each has its own odd ways about it. If the girl wishes to eat alone in silence, let her. Though, when she comes back again, framed by soft moonlight, he suddenly remembers that she is, after all, a girl, and it's been a rather long time. Too long."
And that's when Conan starts putting the moves on her. Comes up from behind her, starts running his fingers through her hair. "It gets cold on the desert at night. Why don't we—" "I'm not cold. At the oasis of Shar al-Tajin, my Conan, when we both bathed, perhaps." Conan admits he's probably pretty stinky, and if he has to wait, knowing that he's going to get a little something, he'll wait. And furthermore, he quite likes the fact that she refers to him as my Conan. Turn the page. It's the next day, riding still through the desert. That's when they come upon a group of thieves, brigands. They, of course, give chase, the brigands, as soon as they see Conan and the girl. There's 4 of them, 4 of these bandits. They're all on horseback. And as they're running, Zhadorr points out that the oasis that they're looking for, it's just beyond the next dune. She can feel it. Conan is happy about that because if he's going to fight 4 guys in the desert, he'd rather do it in the shade than out in the sun. Turn the page. We're now on page 15 of the comic. They have found the oasis. Conan immediately rides up to a pool that's right beside a tree. and dives straight off of the horse into the water. Because he figures, as he says here, I'll just see if a fast plunge will improve my spirits and freshen my sword arm. But as he swims around in this pool, he's got his eyes open. It's clear enough that he can open his eyes and he can see underwater and see what's down there. And he sees at the bottom of this pool, there are skeletons. And that's when he remembers that Shar al-Tajin means the bones of fools. Turn the page 16. Conan comes up out of the water. We got to get out of here. The water's poison. There's a bunch of dead people at the bottom of the pond. Blah. Zhadorr, however, she tells Conan that the water's not poisoned. She swears it. She's never been there before, but she knows that it's not poisoned. They don't get much further, however, with this argument when the bandits, the brigands, the thieves, the 4 bad guys, they come riding into the oasis, and they and Conan, of course, start to throw down. Conan being Conan, especially now that he's had a good plunge in the water and he's refreshed himself, he's holding his own, taking on 4 guys. It's really no big deal to Conan. But by the time we get to the bottom of page 16, he gets hit in the sword arm, in the forearm, just under his wrist. He gets hit by a sword. Slice! And it throws him off balance. Turn the page. The bandits have taken advantage of this. One of them has now, Conan has his, guy has his arm around Conan's throat, from behind. Headlock, basically, but around his throat. They're about to kill him when the leader tells them, no. Do not kill the barbarian. He'll fetch a good price in the slave markets to the south. And so they crack him on top of the head, the pommel of the sword. Blam! Conan's down. They start tying up Conan. One of the bandits mentions that it just doesn't seem even worth the bother because the cut on his arm was pretty deep and it's bleeding quite badly, and that the guy thinks that Conan is going to bleed out and die anyway. So the leader, the leader of the bandits, charges Zhadorr because she's a woman. Obviously, women know all about healing and binding wounds and medicinal herbs and all that junk, and so he has her bind up his wound. She doesn't know what he's talking about, though. Bind? I don't know what you mean. Tareem's blood, what kind of wench are you anyway? Thank the gods I plan to sell you for a slave, not to take you to wife. So he has one of his men do it instead, because she obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. And as we get to the bottom of the page, Conan is now captured. Zhadorr has been captured. Night is falling upon the oasis.
Hither Came Conan will return after these messages.
Across the DC multiverse, countless worlds exist in parallel, each with its own history, its own heroes, its own destiny. I'm DC Dave, and this is Infinite Earths, a guide to the DC multiverse, a travel log and field guide to the worlds beyond the familiar. Each episode, we chart a different Earth, exploring its origins, its defining stories, and the cosmic architecture that shaped it. From the earliest multiverse experiments to the mythic forces that rewrote reality itself, every world has a place on the map. The horror is waiting. Join me. Let's explore.
Curious about the origins of the Man of Steel? Check out the Superman Super Show. My name is Steven, and along with Ed Moore, we're on a mission to read every Superman story from the Golden Age, one comic book at a time. In each episode, we dive into Superman's earliest adventures, from leaping over tall buildings to battling mad scientists, sharing our thoughts and plenty of laughs. New episodes drop every 2 weeks. Subscribe to the Superman Super Show wherever you listen to podcasts, and join us on this journey through comic book history.
An heroic legacy beginning in 1941 that spans time, space, and the whole of the multiverse. Journey along with the Knights of the Stars. Ted, David, and Jack. They, along with Will Payton, Michael Thomas, Prince Gavin, Tom Kalor, and Courtney Whitmore, they take the mantle of Starman and continue his legacy. I invite you to listen as I journey through these adventures of all these heroes and the rest of the Starman family here on Opal City Confidential, a Starman podcast, coming February 2023.
And now back to Hither Came Conan.
Skip the ads, go to page 22. Conan wakes up. He's leaning back against this big tree. There's a moment here. If we go back to page 16, I forgot to point out when Conan dives into the water, he sees skeletons and he comes up and he's like, it's poison water. There's a bit of narration after Zhadorr says that, after she says that the water's not poison and that, actually she said she has been there before. I guess I read that wrong the first time, but she has been there before, so she knows. And then the narration says,
The girl's words give Conan pause. There in the shade of the great gnarled, heavily vined tree, which dominates the tiny oasis. A tree somehow less tropical of kind than the others in the place.
And that's when the bandits show up. So, forgot to point out that there's something weird about the tree. Anyway, by page 22, Conan wakes up. He's been unconscious. He wakes up. He's got his hands tied behind his back. He's leaning. He's sitting and leaning back against the tree. 3 of the bandits are asleep, but the leader, Hakshi, that's his name, Hakshi, he's still awake. And he is kind of sitting there around the fire and he's looking over at Zhadorr and he's thinking, I got nothing going on tonight. Maybe I'll get a little something started. Conan, in the meantime, he's watching this happening. And he has picked up a stone and he is using it to sever the rope that they've used to tie his hands behind his back. Zhadorr, in the meantime, she's kind of kneeling there on the other side of the fire and she's humming. Hakshi tells her to stop the humming. It's annoying him. She won't. So he gets up to like pop her a fresh one. Ernie, take you, woman, cease that infernal humming. I swear it sets my skull on fire. Stop it, I say, or I'll... And she interrupts him and says, What will you do? I think you need a few lessons in being civil, wench. And he picks her up and he drags her off into the dark behind the big tree. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't struggle. She doesn't call out for help. She just continues on with her humming. Conan, in the meantime, he's still working on freeing his hands. And that's when he notices something by the tree, hanging from the tree. As the narration says,
While unspeaking, the Cimmerian works but harder on the ropes which hold him, and, as he does so, his eye falls briefly but curiously on something which hangs like a huge ripe fruit, previously unnoticed, off to one side. Oh well, it means nothing to Conan.
So basically, it's almost like this giant, person-sized seed pod hanging from the tree. I wonder what that's all about. Turn the page. We're now on page 23. Conan frees himself. He gets up. He goes around to the back of the tree to try to find Zhadorr and Hakshi because he knows that Hakshi's up to no good and he wants to stop him. But as he goes around to the other side of the tree, he's a little curious that if Hakshi is doing what he suspects he is doing, he should hear something, screams of pain from the girl, maybe struggling, something. But as he comes around the tree, he finds Zhadorr. She's she looks really out of it. She's standing, her back to the tree. She looks like she's swaying, like she's about to faint, like she's got a case of the vapors. Oh, I've got the vapors. At her feet is Hakshi's sword, and then next to her is a freaking skeleton. Conan sees her. He is immediately like, what in the fuck just happened here? She's no longer humming. She sees him and she says, my Conan. And she falls. He catches her before she hits the ground, but it appears that she is dead. And so he buries her there in the oasis. And as he does so, the narration tells us,
Still the ground is soft, and the girl deserves a swift burial. He does not sense the lithe, leafless tendril which stirs behind him, toward him. For an instant, before it would touch him, he suddenly hears the screaming of men.
And that's how this page ends. Last panel, he's running to investigate. He's got his sword in his hand. We turn the page, and we get this freaking awesome double-page spread. You got the 3 other bandits, and one of the horses are over by this tree, and there are all these vines, these tendrils that are coming down off the tree, and they've wrapped themselves, the tendrils, they're all wrapped around the horse and the men, but not like completely covering them. The horse, it's got around its midsection and then a vine around the horse's neck strangling it. And it's the same with the dudes, the three guys. Vines around their midsections to hold them, and then vines around their necks, strangling them. The narration on this double-page spread says,
"The harsh crackling of fire has, of course, kept any prowling, predatory beasts away from the sleeping camp and those within it."
Conan, upon seeing all this happening, yells out, "Crumbs, devils!" And we turn the page 30, and we see like a big mouth opening up in the trunk of the tree. It's not like the mouth of the tree that we see on the cover, which I'm going to go back to the cover really quick because I feel like the mouth on that tree had like lips and teeth. Let's look, shall we? Yeah, it's got lips and teeth and such. But in the actual comic, it's just the wood has opened up to make a mouth, and the teeth, the wood have kind of like formed teeth and whatnot. And anyway, it's pulling the men and the horse inside it. And then it goes after Conan. Conan, however, picks up a piece of wood from the fire and smacks at the thing with the torch. By this point, however, the vines of the tree have grabbed up Conan. They've taken a hold of him by one of his legs. There's another bit of vine wrapped around the hand, the arm that's holding the torch. Turn the page 31. The thing is about to pull Conan inside its gaping tree mouth, and Conan throws the torch into the mouth, which causes the freaking thing to die. It almost looks like on this page, if you go to the second row of panels, the tree is suddenly ablaze. Basically, it lets go of Conan. Conan falls into the sand below, and the tree bursts into flames, and Conan falls unconscious. He wakes up that next morning, still on page 31. All that's left of the tree is a smoking stump, and the oasis itself is gone. Last page 32, as Conan is investigating, he notices one of these big seed pods starts to open up. And there's a really great row of panels here, the top row of panels. There's 3 rows of panels on this last page. Top row, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels going back and forth between Conan's face and the seed pod as the seed pod opens, and you can see Zhadorr inside. And the look on Conan's face goes from curiosity to, that's kind of weird, to just flat out terror. In the second row of panels, also 6 panels, Zhadorr, she looks up from the pod. She sees Conan. "My Conan," she says. Conan looks at her. He's terrified. He doesn't see her as a woman anymore. It doesn't even see her as a person. He understands that she's not human. She's some kind of monster. She's some kind of creature. She's a part of the tree that tried to eat him. And this is where it gets really brutal. This issue ends very well, in a very brutal, violent fashion. She's starting to step out of the seed pod. By the last panel on the second row of panels, he's realized this is not Zhadorr. This is not a human. This is some kind of creature that wants to kill him. And so he raises his sword to strike her down. And then the bottom row of panels, this is where we get the brutal bit. And I'll read you the narration.
"For long minutes, there is no sound in the once oasis, not save the relentless hacking of Conan's great broadsword, rising and falling again and again, and yet again. At length, he stops, when his sword arm is weary, and when the unmoving, lifeless, bloodless mass at his feet no longer even resembles anything human. And Conan knows he'll forget the thing that was called only Zhadorr, when there are leagues enough between himself and the smoldering embers of Shar al-Tajin."
So basically, she comes out of this pod, and he just starts hacking at her with his sword until his arms grow tired. That's a lot of hacking. He hacks and hacks and hacks until his arms are tired, and she's nothing. There's nothing left over that resembles human. Just a big pile of meat and blood and guts. It's pretty gross. But that's how the issue ends. I really kind of enjoyed this issue. It's fun. You know, a lot of these issues seem to be Roy basing the story on either a Robert E. Howard Conan tale or a Robert E. Howard tale that is about a character that's not Conan, or a L. Sprague de Camp, Lynn Carter tale. Or, and I think we'll get another one here fairly soon, he had invited a bunch of other writers, like fantasy writers, to pitch ideas, to write up some stories for issues. That's how we got the Elric crossover. But it's fun when we get just a straight up Roy issue. Granted, he was inspired by these other two stories, Shambleau and the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You can see obviously where in the story the inspiration of from those two stories come in on this. But yeah, really good. I really enjoyed it. I don't know. I don't think there's anything I have to say. I don't think there's anything left. Is what I mean. I don't think there's anything left that I have to say about Conan the Barbarian number 41. The Garden of Life and Death is what it was called. I think I put up a teaser at one point out on the socials, and I got the title reversed. I called it The Garden of Life and Death, but it's the Garden of Death and Life. Oh my goodness. Anyway, if you have anything you would like to add, let me know. The easiest way to do that is by email. The address is feedback@hithercameconan.com. So shoot me a line, and maybe I will read it out on a future episode. Who knows?
Everybody out!
In our next episode, goodness gracious, Conan gets himself involved with another attractive young woman, and, well, it turns out she's not who she makes herself out to be. I mean, you think, oh, Conan would learn by now. And then again, that's the sacrifice one has to make if they want to be an ally to women in the Hyborian age. Anyway, that's next time when we dive into Conan the Barbarian, number 42, Night of the Gargoyle, published by Marvel Comics in June of 1974. The synopsis used in this episode was taken from MarvelFandom.com and then rewritten by me. The information used in this episode comes from Wikipedia, along with Mike's Amazing World of Comics at Mike'sAmazingWorld.com and the book Barbarian Life, a literary biography of Conan the Barbarian, Volume 1 by Roy Thomas, which you can get now at SumerianPress.com. And finally, the views and opinions expressed within this episode are mine and mine alone, and do not reflect the official policy or position of Marvel Comics, Roy Thomas, the Howard Estate, Conan, his sword, his steely thews, his many fans and supporters, and especially his god, Crom.
Crom laughs with your four winds.
So until next time, folks, keep your swords close by, never stop treading them jeweled thrones, and as always, be nice to each other. Bye!
We would like to thank you for listening to this episode of Hither Came Conan. Questions and comments can be directed to feedback@hithercameconan.com. If you enjoyed the show, you can help to boost our presence online by leaving a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. We would also like to invite you to join our subscription program, Stephen or Else Beyond. And in return, you'll get episodes of Hither Came Conan early and ad-free. Check out the link in the show notes, or just go to hithercameconan.com to sign up today. Hither Came Conan is a presentation of Stephen or Else Media. For more nerdy content hosted by Stephen, check out SoManyPodcasts.com. All links will be in the show notes.
Conan fights him off and flees the village with the girl, who tells him of the nearby oasis, Shar al-Tajin, 2 days' ride from the village. Tajin? Did I get that right? I don't know. That's why I have that warning that you'll hear when you listen to the episode about how I butcher all the names, because I didn't grow up in Hyboria. What do you want from me? Conan frantically attacks the tree creature. Bah. Conan frantically attacks the tree creature with a torch, setting it to its stupid, lighting its butt aflame. Only one of the pods remains unharmed, and it opens up, revealing a perfect replica of Zhadorr. I keep saying it like that for some reason. Only one of the pods remain See, if I can't get it the first time, as each pod reaches full development, it assimilates the physical. As each pod reaches full development, it assimilates the physical traits, memories, and personalities. God. Another drink here, right? You get some water here.
I just don't think I can move through life knowing that a guy named Steven did this to me.
How could you let this happen, Steven?
Your podcast sucks.
Enough talk.
Great Crom.